So let's talk about the orange one and especially 2024. Because next year, indeed, is going to be a very, very big year. Not only do we have, of course, the American elections, there's going to be sort of one here, and at least I think 70 taking place around the world. So there's going to be a lot of elections next year. And yet the one that is going to have the biggest impact on the world is going to be America in 2024. Because Americans will once again be offered the choice of, do we continue with Joe Biden, or do we throw all caution to the wind and just go with Donald Trump, who's going to be a dictator just for one day? And really, guys, we're going to just, trust him to be that just for one day. And then that's it, dictatorship over. Not only that, but Plan 2025, the Bannon or the Steve Bannon and other really crazy right-wing authoritarians in America plan that they've got to try and completely seize control of the state. Honestly, it's it's going to be pretty crazy if Donald Trump's win, because not only, of course, is there going to be sort of big consequences for America, there are going to be consequences for the rest of the world as well. And that is what is worrying. And I've said this quite a lot, not only on here, but when we've done Geoscope as well on Labour Social, and we'll be talking about it next year as well. There are a lot of flashpoints potentially in the world where if you've got Donald Trump in the White House, it all of a sudden raises a lot of questions of how bad could it be if Donald Trump decides, I'm not going to get involved, I don't see this as a priority, or uses his quote fantastic negotiating skills to essentially just sail allies, as he has previously done when he was president last time, completely down the river. So before, of course, we get going into this and talking more about 2024 and some of these areas where it could be incredibly worse, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. There's a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there is the Pony Club as well. And of course, remember, next Wednesday, we are doing the big review of the year. So if you are a member of the Pony Club or the Patreon, you will get access to that next Wednesday when we do that. So, this is the problem. But before we do that, many of you might be thinking, oh, but Bowler Hat Man, I've heard Trump's been deselected in Colorado. If he's deselected there, doesn't that mean that other states using the 14th Amendment will be able to deselect him from the ballot, thus meaning that he cannot win? Well, yes, that is true. While that has happened in Colorado, and this is going to go to the Supreme Court in I think it's like the 4th of January. I think they're going to discuss this. So this is going to happen very, very early in the new year. And to be honest, how will they rule? That is the big question. Remember, it's a conservative-controlled Supreme Court at the moment. The likelihood of this passing is very much zero. If you've seen a lot of law scholars and people who sort of study the Supreme Court, the reality is what they've said is, look, the 14th Amendment currently only really applies to those people who have been charged of insurrection. One thing that has not happened to Donald Trump is that he has never, ever been technically charged with insurrection. Thus, as a lot of people are now speculating, the 14th Amendment does not apply to him. So, as many people as I'm sure were happy, and I think, oh my word, we've dodged a bullet there. Um, oh no. By the sounds of it, and by the way, I've seen a lot of Americans, especially sort of like experts in talking about the Supreme Court. No, apparently the 14th does not apply to Donald Trump. Um, and yes, I know I too was a bit saddened. I was a bit sad when I read their opinions, and it honestly the way that they've described it sort of makes sense because again hasn't actually been charged. Yes, impeached, but impeaching is a very different thing. And of course, technically, that impeachment, of course, did not go through. Um, so yeah. So unfortunately, that's not the big win I think we were hoping for. But of course, what about flashpoints? Well, of course, one of the most obvious ones is Ukraine. What happens there? Trump has said that he can solve this entire conflict in just one day. Like he can go in and solve this conflict. Now, we have never ever heard what Trump's big master plan is to solve this conflict. We just do not know. And it would not be unusual because Donald Trump did this in his last presidential run, where he sold American allies completely down the river and abandoned American backed allies in Syria. And as a result, they got absolutely, wiped out. Well, I think they're still there, but they're not as strong as they used to be. Could Donald Trump just sell Ukraine down the river? That is entirely possible. That's why I keep on making the point that we in Europe have to come up with a serious plan if Donald Trump wins. And I do hope that David Lammy, because that looks like, again, we're still going to heading for a potential Labour government, needs to have a plan. But it's not just there. Of course, you've got what's going on in Gaza at the moment. Do you think that Donald Trump is really going to sort of try and rein um, Israel in? I don't think so. If anything, he's only going to encourage them more. So again, going to make a bad situation even worse. And then, of course, we've got what about US obligations to the UN? For those of you who don't know, there is a situation brewing between Kosovo and Serbia at the moment over license plates. Now, this might sound rather almost silly and trivial, but the reality is these license plates lie at a core principle of sovereignty and territorial integrity. Because northern Serb, or well, should we say, northern Serbians who live in the northern part of Kosovo are refusing to accept, uh, Kosovo license plates. This is causing a big brouhaha. And you've got to remember at the moment there are UN troops in Kosovo. And one of the things that, quite worryingly, the current leadership of Serbia has said is that they have learned from Azerbaijan when they took Nagorno-Karabakh. If you remember, that also happened this year as well. That waiting for the right time, the right set of political circumstances, which may mean waiting to see if we get, they get Donald Trump or not. Well, Serbia may decide it's going to just go, in and sort of, take Kosovo. Which, again, if people remember from the 90s, wasn't exactly, a good thing. And remember, there are UN troops stationed there to keep the peace there. As we saw in Nagorno-Karabakh, there were Russian peacekeeping forces meant to be sort of, stopping Azerbaijan from taking that. But of course, because Russia is sort of busy falling it on its sword in Ukraine, not only did did Russian peacekeeping troops get killed there by Azerbaijan, but there was absolutely zero response from Russia. There was no pushback. They did nothing. However, this isn't sort of Russia and its security guarantees we're talking about. We're talking about UN peacekeeping troops here that could be very well be put in the line of fire. How then would Donald Trump respond to that? It's a valid question, and it's very worrying what the answer might be. Once again, as we said at the start of this video, if Donald Trump gets elected, he could be making a lot of situations infinitely worse. So, with that, of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.